Greetings, Dragon Ball fans, and welcome to part 7 of Chandler Kinney's suggested What If Grandpa Gohan Got Through to Goku, where the now Master Gohan took a slightly different approach to that rambunctious little terror. Instead of dropping him off a cliff, he challenged him to a fight. And then, because Kakarot remembers a couple of things, he also got to avoid being squished like that bit of putty that to this very day is probably still firmly embedded in your parents' carpet. Previously, Kakarot has made good on his goal of becoming the strongest via his master's training. He has ventured out to explore the world with Bulma as she pursued her dreams of strawberries, or a boyfriend. He has made other friends along the way, in the form of Oolong, who he maybe doesn't want to eat anymore, as well as Yamcha and the hover cat Puar. Are cats too cute to eat? I bet he at least thought about it. After the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament, Kakarot went off to secure at least the 4-star ball and ran straight into the Red Ribbon Army. Well, more like the Red Ribbon Army ran afoul of a rigorously honorable Saiyan in battle armor that Bulma, and possibly Capsule Corp as a whole, have been having a little too much fun with. Nothing the Red Ribbon Army could throw at him managed to stick. Not Major Metallotron, not Ninja Murasaki, and certainly not the passive Aether. Not Tao Pai Pai, nor ultimately that giant mech piloted by Commander Black could make even a dent. Then, amid the final round of the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, that somewhat ancient Assassin for Hire's brother, the equally ancient Master Shen, has also met his end by his own attack when Tien refused to straight up kill the boy and sought to defend himself against his own master's dishonor. Unfortunately for Tien, Kakarot had been paying more attention to his surroundings, and with several more years of tutelage under his Master Gohan, combined with the lack of a Nimbus cloud, he has come up with his own method of flight, if only in the moment. Tambourine still attacked in order to obtain the 4-star ball and the tournament roster, but was unable to kill off the slightly stronger and slightly faster Krillin, who'd spent a decent enough portion of those interleaving years training in what amounts to a full-body turtle shell, courtesy of Bulma's tinkering with Kakarot's Saiyan body armor and then his space pod too. Krillin is still alive, and Kakarot did not fly into a rage and give chase, so they had some time to plan, and plan they have. While Krillin recovers from his recent brush with death, Roshi, Gohan, Tien, and an uninjured Yamcha plan to seek out the Mafuba, while Kakarot will secure at least one Dragon Ball. Following Mai's advice, he will then hide it in a lead-lined box, hopefully removing it from the board. When Kakarot retrieves his little flyer from his old, somewhat beat-up armor and pops the capsule, Mai shakes her head and steps back in, saying that, while she doesn't relish the thought of meeting the little Emperor again, she does feel that she owes them something for their attempt to revive Sho. So, guess she'll come too. This is partly her mess after all, what with that satellite they'd used to eavesdrop on Mutaito's exposition, back at this iteration's Baba tournament. After an appraising look at her, Kakarot agrees and pockets his recapsulized flyer. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that Mai's ride looks way faster than his dinky little one. Once airborne, on the radar, he can see that one ball is moving away from them pretty quickly, and while Kakarot's impulse is to chase down what he's sure is his, or rather Gohan's 4-star ball, they did have a plan, and there's another blip relatively nearby that's not moving that much. Huh, Kakarot says to himself as he clicks around, watching the first dot as it approaches and then passes the second one. What was that? Mai asks, taking her eyes off the controls for a second. That demon thing doesn't have a radar with him, Kakarot says, holding out his. See, he just flew straight past one. A very wide-eyed Mai ogles the compact little thing for a moment, then smiles grimly and nods. My radar's the size of a house, she says. They'll be heading back this way soon enough, though. They circle the side of that other bowl once, then descend into the jungle and start poking through the vaguely tropical underbrush. Following Kakarot's nose to the sweet smell of grilled fish, as well as the blip on the screen, they find the lone samurai, Yajirobe, happily tucking into said fish. When Mai steps into view, though, Yajirobe flutters for a bit, and, at least attempting to be a gentleman, despite the mess he's made of his meal so far, he offers her a bite. Oh, she's got a kid? I guess he can have a... And with that, what little is left of the fish is devoured, right before this self-proclaimed lord's eyes. After trying to placate the pudgy and very indignant samurai, Mai takes note of the bowl hanging around his neck, and is about to inquire about it when Kakarot sits up and points into the sky. It looked like that thing Krillin had described is coming back. Well, close to it. He'd not mentioned it was so big. Symbol then lands and demands the bowl too, only to find Kakarot and Yajirobe quibbling over who gets to fight him. Yajirobe is both a bit miffed that a good third of his fish got, well, not stolen per se, but he is also a bit distracted as he wants to put on a good show for the pretty lady, so Kakarot wins the rock, paper, scissors and proceeds to wreck Symbol's career with disappointing ease. Not even his lightning attack thing phases the boy, who just dodges casually out of the way. What little is left of Symbol still ends up on the spit, and this time Kakarot is game to try some. That mere shred of fish was barely enough to satisfy him, especially after that fight with Tien. So Mai is left trying not to gag, as Kakarot shares his kill with this supposedly strong, if a bit blustery, Yajirobe guy. They are midway through their meal, while Mai digs through the supplies in the plane, searching for some lead to make a box out of, when there is more flapping, and a skinnier version of Symbol appears, and he's not pleased to see what is clearly the remains of his brother, slowly getting increasingly crispy over a fire. This time, Yajirobe is intent on killing the thing, since Kakarot got to do the last one, and similar to their recent meal, Tambourine is ultimately sliced and diced. Yajirobe has quite a bit more trouble with the nimble Tambourine than Kakarot had with Symbol, but with a wing eventually clipped by the shiny sword, the fight evens out. Man, Yajirobe was pretty ridiculous back in the day, wasn't he? Mai has also finally assembled what she hopes is a good container for the Dragonball, and asks Yajirobe if they can please put that thing around his neck into the box. The round little samurai doesn't really want to, though. Those creatures that keep coming for it are pretty weak after all, so why bother? What are they going to do? Send dessert? Kakarot and Mai then relay most of what Master Roshi had said about the mighty King Piccolo, and after a moment of self-reflection, Yajirobe hands the bowl over. If those legends are even half true, it's just not worth the risk. Mai says that they don't want to keep the bowl from him, just put it in the box and bury it somewhere, not right next to the campfire and, the two demon corpses. Yeah, no thanks. Yajirobe thought it looked cool, but wants nothing to do with that King Piccolo guy. Oh, right, Kakarot says. I finally tasted a demon. Oh, Mai barely suppresses a gag and goes just a little bit pale. It was delicious, Yajirobe says, patting his belly. Some salt, maybe? Or would that have made it shrivel up? No, Kakarot laughs. That only happens to slugs. Mai makes a beeline for the bush, and retching noises can be heard in the background, as Kakarot and the bottomless pit of a samurai lord compare culinary notes. Straight up demon? Check. Demon pig? Well, turns out Oolong's not really a demon, so no point in waiting on that. A T-Rex? Yajirobe's never had a T-Rex before. A bit chewy, huh? Wait, a girl killed it. Chi-Chi, huh? She sounds cool. Wait, what do you mean she's the Ox King's daughter? Oh, what is Yajirobe getting himself caught up in? King Piccolo? Ox Kings? It's just too much. Next they'll be saying they've met the legendary Muten Roshi, too. Well, that would certainly explain the boy's apparent strength. When Mai gets back to the campfire, there is a distinct lack of a box, though she is still a bit on the pale side, having lost what little remained of her lunch. They are about to say their goodbyes when the sound of propellers draws their attention, and they look up to see an airship lumbering into view. Mai can see three figures peering over the railing. The short one looking down at her with binoculars is Pilaf. Well, that's just great. She's a bit busy staring down, or up, at the little Emperor to notice the two larger men. One well-dressed black guy and a green one. The black dude is shouting something and pointing at them, or maybe at that Kakarot kid? Eventually, she notices the airship's label. It's not just Pilaf. There's some funny-looking bow-tie mark. Wait, she knows that mark. The Red Ribbon Army. Weren't they defunct now? The green one steps over the edge and descends to the ground with barely a thump. Mai looks back and forth between Kakarot, this presumably King Piccolo guy, and, it looks like that Yajirobe guy has vanished. So much for all that chivalry, huh? So, King Piccolo says, glancing up at the airship, they seem to think you're the one who killed my children. Surely one so small could not be responsible for such destruction. Kakarot just stares back at him, a massive grin on his face. Masters Roshi and Gohan had warned him away from chasing down and confronting the Demon King himself, and he hadn't. He hadn't needed to. Here he is, right in front of him. He's supposed to be really strong, a real challenge, like Tien, only better. Kakarot then glances down at his wrist to see the armor's current setting. 5. 5 what? How heavy is that? And where's the control slider? It used to be right there, but there's no knobs or buttons. Nothing. Ah, nuts. In his haste to head off, he hadn't waited for Bulma to give him the rundown on the new armor. That could be a problem. As he assumes a stance, readying himself for what will surely be a fight to remember, he casually runs a finger down where the old weight slider used to be. The number drops, he instantly feels lighter, and King Piccolo's eyebrow goes up. Ah, nuts. Had he seen the motion like Mutaito had? Interesting, King Piccolo says, smirking. You just raised your strength with a single stance. Not even that annoying Mutaito insect could do that so smoothly. All that grunting and straining, and oh my, the shouting. How trite. Kakarot's grin widens while he breathes an internal sigh of relief. He hadn't seen, he'd only felt the excess energy that wasn't being used to hold himself up under whatever that number 5 meant. Kakarot moves his feet slightly, testing the weight of himself, and decides that he's about 1/5 as heavy, so it's a weight multiplier? Oh right, Bulma had said something about using gravity? So it's like being on a bigger planet or something. There's a memory there, but he can't quite grasp it, so he files it away for later. Kakarot's first strike on King Piccolo sends them both tumbling off through the underbrush. Mai just sits there on the ground for a moment, staring after them, having not even seen him move. One moment they're standing there, actually smiling at each other. Then they just vanished, and a shockwave knocked her and a decent swath of trees over. She looks up to see the airship wobbling and spinning, his little majesty clinging to the banister for dear life as that big man grapples with the controls. She thinks about pulling her gun, but can't bring herself to shoot at them. For years he'd been her boss. She'd looked after him, done his every bidding, bandaged his boo-boos, and he'd not even cared that Sho was dead, only that he'd need a new henchmutt. Her train of thought is broken off by a distant boom, and something goes flying by, crashing into the bushes, taking out several more trees. Looking back in the direction whatever that was had come from, she sees the green man gliding through the air like a wraith. Then she smiles slightly, actually seeing the man. His clothes are torn, and he is bleeding and clutching at an arm that looks, well, wrong. It's kind of backwards, maybe broken. He glances down at her as he passes, and she can feel his terrible anger washing over her, pushing her over again and pressing her down into the ground. As King Piccolo glides past, he starts to say, "I'll get to you soon enough, my dear," but is cut off by someone shouting something from the tree line. Ka. King Piccolo stops, looking around at the noise, and visibly tenses up. Mai can feel the weight on her lesson as his focus goes elsewhere. May. The sound comes from somewhere else. "You won't be pecking me away again, boy," King Piccolo shouts, turning again to face the sound. Ha! From somewhere else again. Oh, the green man relaxes. It's not the Mafuba. May! From right behind Mai, and she lays as flat as she can. Come out, wherever you are," King Piccolo calls, almost mocking. But nothing happens. There is no sound, no shouting, just the slight huffing of King Piccolo as he looks around and around, following something Mai can't even begin to feel. Seeing the moment, though, as his anger is now wholly focused elsewhere, she rolls away into the underbrush, then up to her feet, and she sprints away. Kamehameha, huh? Oh, she knows what comes next. She'd seen it firsthand back at Fortune Teller Baba's, and seen the tapes they'd retrieved from the rubble of the castle. The bright light, the explosions. Yeah, no thanks. As she runs, she senses movement behind her, and hears the final part. Ha! The world goes white, and Mai trips, dropping to the shaking ground. And so as Mai rolls, tumbles, and grinds to a halt, we will bring Part 7 to a close. Will Kakarot's Kamehameha be enough to stop King Piccolo? How do you think Roshi, Gohan, Tien, Yamcha, and Krillin are doing with their Mafuba stuff? Will they get to use it, or will it all be a waste of time? If Kakarot manages to kill King Piccolo here and now, what ramifications could that have for the future of this world? Find out next time on Dragon Ball. What if Grandpa Gohan got through to Goku?